A winter wind blows across Augusta as the temperature begins to drop.
They ask so many questions, I can't answer.
So does hope.
I hate to talk about it because I get so emotional, but
The only feeling other than numb from cold is desperation inside the broken down SUV.
How old are your children?
8, 3, 1 month.
This chill,
And you've been sleeping in this vehicle?
Yes.
pierces to the soul.
They say they want to go home a lot. And they're not understanding that, we don't have a home right now.
More fear than embarrassment keeps her from the direct view of our camera.
My kids, I don't want them to I don't want to be away from them.
That same fear also keeps her from telling her son's teacher the reason he misses class.
You've been homeless for how long now?
A month. Probably going on 2 months.
The dominoes started falling last spring.
When do you believe I'm
Yes, I need, I got somebody over here that's hitting on me and I'm pregnant.
I was high risk my whole pregnancy.
What's his description?
I had a lot of complications.
Get out my face.
I was at the hospital and my lights were disconnected. So it's very difficult. And, having a newborn in a vehicle, with the water bottles, sometimes they're cold. I don't have a way to warm them.
Food.
I just have to give them to her as is.
Shelter.
All the calls that I made Friday.
Mom stuck in survival mode.
22 calls that day and nobody could help you.
Son caught on a learning fault line.
Why did he miss last week?
I had no way to take him.
Beds are more important than books. Tonight, Augusta is under a winter weather advisory. The temperature is dropping and snow is on the way.
They're pointing to each other. All of them are, giving me each other's. Like, I'll call this one, they'll be like, oh, well, just call this one. I said that they redirected me to you.
Navigating through the complex maze of government agencies and nonprofits designed to help people in need is confusing, to say the least. Daunting for someone who just became homeless, nearly impossible with 4 young children.
First, Alicia needs a background check before she and her 4 children can get into a shelter. But the sheriff's office is closed early due to the weather. Next, she needs a room, but nobody is answering at the shelter. We did answer the phone. Texts and calls to sources and several roadblocks. Hours later, and a clean background check in hand, we walked them through the doors of the only shelter in Augusta that accepts families.
We're averaging probably 16 to 17 kids each night.
School-age kids.
School-age kids.
Dr. Gregory Rhodes is the director of the Center of Hope, the shelter where Alicia and her children now stay at night.
Why do you think that population has increased?
Because of the evictions, at least 2 of those families, the parent is suffering from mental illness, which has, again, increased their risk of being homeless.
The I-Team spent the last 6 months on the Homeless Task Force investigating the reasons behind the increase. Estimates show the overall homeless population has skyrocketed 150% in Augusta since last school year. But we discovered that surge is not reflected in Richmond County schools. While the homeless population increased, homeless kids in the classroom decreased by more than 65%. The I-Team spent months analyzing attendance data. 456 elementary school students were homeless last school year. This year, only 154. So, where are all the homeless kids?
Have you told them he's in school?
Yes.
Getting into a shelter was a challenge. Getting her son to school is a whole other mountain. Her son is a whiz at math, but the 8-year-old needs help in other areas.
He's always struggled with reading.
The 2nd grader missed a week of school in January.
I had no way to take him.
Even at the shelter,
Him missing a week, I know that raised concern.
Alicia still struggles to get him to Sue Reynolds Elementary every morning.
Have they said anything about bringing a bus here?
No. I know nobody said nothing about a bus. It's just mandatory that he go to school every day.
Alicia finally tells her son's teacher they are homeless once she learns about the McKinney-Vento Act. It's a federal program that provides funds to school districts to ensure homeless kids get equal access to education. As soon as a student is identified, the school district assigns a homeless liaison to work with the families to address learning barriers like transportation.
Just waiting on somebody to contact with me with something.
But 10 days after Alicia says her son needs a ride to school,
Does your son have a way to school?
still no bus.
No.
It will take a while to work out bus transportation, so the homeless liaison offers a cab voucher. She withdraws the offer when Alicia tells her she doesn't have car seats.
It's a revolving door of dead ends.
Aisha and Alicia worked together before life sucker punched the young mother.
She got 4 small kids. You're telling her son has to go to school. Her son doesn't get dismissed from school until 3:45. She has to be back here by 4 o'clock in order to still have a place for her and her kids to sleep at night. So how does that work?
Aisha drives her friend's son to school when her work schedule allows for it. Lately, it has not. The second grader missed several more days of school just last week.
We know that even 2 days a month of absences can impact a child's ability to learn to read.
Dr. Kim Barker is an assistant professor at the College of Education at Augusta University.
When they're about 8 years old in 3rd grade, is when they need to be able to make the switch to reading to learn. If they can't read that, they just fall further and further behind.
Alicia's son is at a pivotal age in school. What he learns or does not learn now could have lifelong consequences.
Statistically, we know that kids who are not able to read on grade level by 3rd grade are less likely to be healthy adults. They're more likely to be unemployed. They're more likely to be incarcerated in their life.
He don't really ask questions. He just asks him all right. And that bothers me too. He was like, "Are you okay?" And I just like, "Yeah."
What, we wait for a news story to cover this young mother that has snapped and it's been too much for her?
28 days after we first met Elisa inside the cold cab of her SUV.
And then everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, I wonder what happened." We failed her.
She and her children are still stuck at the shelter.
We failed her. We failed our kids.
With nowhere else to go but to teeter on the Faultline. We meet Tiffany outside the Center of Hope homeless shelter on a brisk January morning. She's new here and stops to ask us for directions.
You just asked me how far the school was. I think I looked at it a couple miles.
Up the road.
How are you going to get there?
Maybe by bus or by what? Foot.
Her 3 children
Mine is 18, 9, and 10.
wait nearby on a curb with their book bags.
Where's the school bus at this morning?
Not here.
A bus does arrive for her 2 youngest within a couple days. But weeks later, her oldest is still waiting.
Are you frustrated right now?
A little.
Frustrated, discouraged, embarrassed. Her daughter feels all of the above. Glen Hills High transitioned to virtual learning around the same time the family became homeless. Her friends are back in class, but Nina's seat is still empty. She agrees to text with me.
I miss going to school.
Oh, I'm sorry. Does your teacher at school know what's going on with you?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
Have they offered either a cab ride to school, bus, tutoring, or anything else?
No, ma'am.
Is that the reason you're doing virtual, no ride to school?
Yes, ma'am.
Learning from home isn't easy when there is no home to learn from. Families must check out by 8 in the morning from the shelter. Tiffany works, so Nina goes to a friend's house to spend the day until the family can check back into the shelter at 4. The family rooms are full at night, but the learning center is always dark and empty. Dr. Gregory Rhodes is the shelter director.
I know y'all had the little learning center in here. When's the last time that's been utilized?
Well, we haven't used it. We've been doing virtual tutoring. The parents have to sign up for that through the school system, and then they'll send them a Zoom link, and tutoring will be provided for them.
Nina checks out a tablet from the shelter to learn, but usage is limited to shelter hours. Again, the shelter requires Nina to leave by 8 a.m. every day and not to return until 4 p.m.
Are you made aware, or are you aware when a student staying at the shelter has gone virtual, or do they have to tell you?
They have to tell us. We try to keep up with that, but if we don't know, then of course we don't know. One of the things that we do with our parents, we make sure that they get the information for the school board.
The information is contained here in a small box on page 20 of the Salvation Army's welcome paperwork.
Does the Salvation Army, are they under some sort of obligation to let you know that there's kids there, or no, like school age?
They will. Sometimes if they have that release of information, they will share that information with Ms. Palmer.
Not all of the time, sometimes.
We are in the process of really just trying to do some more closer tracking academically of those students.
Dr. Aronica Gloucester is the director of student services in the Richmond County School System.
There's a lot of missing kids from the school system this year, and when I look further into it, the majority are in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Buried in the data, the I-Team found there are more missing high school kids right now than the previous total of missing students across all grades before the pandemic hit and closed down schools. More than half of the 900 missing students this school year are high school students. That's nearly 500 teens, only 1 to 3 years away from a diploma, vanishing before stepping across the finish line.
What kind of outreach or programs do you have for kids in high school that are just like on that line, like, oh my gosh, there's just so much going on, and it's too much of a battle to even get to school. When I got to babysit, or I got to just find a place that I can sit during the day till the shelter opens. Do you have something in place?
I would not say that there is a specific program for that.
Is she overwhelmed? Are you guys that slammed?
We do have just her in that position this year, and it is taxing. It is.
Her being the homeless liaison. There's only one in a district with nearly 30,000 students.
Things may not be ideal, but I do know wholeheartedly it's not because people do not care in this system, and that efforts are not being made, and that all of us feel that pressure of wanting to do more and to support our students and families more.
Students are least likely to graduate here than from nearly any other public school district in the state. High school dropouts are limited to jobs as fast food workers, store stockers, janitors, and maids. Tiffany can't afford housing on the $11 an hour she earns cleaning at a local hospital.
Our social workers are beating the ground, I'll say that. Really, all school personnel have responsibility. They're calling, they are beating the ground trying to identify or locate students.
88 of Nina's classmates are missing from Glen Hills High this school year. Forgotten on the Faultline, she wants to vanish too. Nearly 3,000 unaccounted for kids coded as if they're receiving an education somewhere else. Almost 3,000 Richmond County students the district never followed up with to make sure they are in school anywhere.
Do you guys understand the process? It seems like there's either it's being ignored, how the state requires it, or you guys just are not confused by it.
Yeah, we've been following the state's process as outlined in the law.
But the I-Team found the district has a history of not following the law. The state investigated and found Richmond County schools were, in fact, not properly coding missing students in 2016 and again in 2017.
The graduation rate is the highest it's been in 10 years.
A time when then Superintendent Dr. Angela Pringle touted Richmond County's graduation rate.
It's important to us to make sure that the students in this community get the services that the school system provides.
State records show otherwise. So does this new lawsuit.
This was actually filed last night, so I don't know if you've seen it or not.
The I-Team found the district's former lead social worker and homeless liaison filed this whistleblower complaint, alleging leaders demoted her for speaking up about leaders not following the McKinney-Vento Act as federally required. She alleges she witnessed at least 20 occasions on which she objected to the denial of free, appropriate public education. That whistleblower sent this email in 2020. She warned the school system back then it was non-compliant under the McKinney-Vento Act. It's a federal law intended to provide homeless students the same educational opportunities as house students. She outlined failings by Richmond County schools in a grant application, writing, "Students are being denied immediate enrollment, withdrawing students because they are out of zone or changed school zones, referrals not being sent in appropriately, or missed referrals altogether." The state awarded the Richmond County School District nearly $350,000 to help reach homeless students. That's in addition to the $117 million under the American Rescue Plan and another $51 million in other COVID-related funds. Altogether, more than $186 million for the Richmond County School District.
The ones that's most vulnerable to fall through the cracks are the poorest ones, the ones that are mostly left out.
Dr. Wayne Frazier was the principal at Glen Hills High School and then later at the alternative school before joining the Board of Education.
The poorest children and the children who was what I call the invisible children. They was only visible at the time that they made a mistake or they got into, they misbehaved. Other than that, they was invisible.
We found truancy complaints are up more than 115% in juvenile court. We also found dozens of teenagers booked in the adult jail at the county, nearly all of which are unaccounted for Richmond County students.
When you don't get an education, there's only two places left, and that's prison or the graveyard.
Ma'am, listen to me. We already getting everybody en route to you, ma'am.
Investigators say Jaquavius Taylor was only 15 when he shot and killed 17-year-old D'Angelo Burns. Burns dropped out of the alternative school the year before he was murdered.
There's some that are dead now that I have found. There are some that are in the jail right now. And there's some that are sitting behind a homeless shelter. How serious are you taking this?
It's our highest priority to make sure our students succeed.
But success is difficult when a school system fails to track thousands of its students who then become invisible and disappear. Homeless students stuck in learning limbo.
Where's the school bus at this morning?
Not here.
No home to learn at home. No ride to learn at school.
Does your son have a way to school?
No.
Have you told the school?
Yes, I told the school.
The I-Team was there at the very first Board of Education meeting following our investigation uncovering homeless students struggling to get to school. We also uncovered a record-breaking number of high school students missing from Richmond County classrooms.
I think it was Channel 12 that did a story regarding the homeless population.
Elected school officials took action and agreed to provide funds to get homeless students to school.
This grant will allow us to be able to look at purchasing a vehicle because the law just changed.
The $349,000 Homeless Children and Youth Grant is part of the American Rescue Plan, also known as ARP.
One is a homeless children and youth grant too. This was $349,580.
Supplements does not replace ARP funds to support the needs of students experiencing homelessness. The I-Team asked Dr. Veronica Gloucester about the grant money weeks before the Board of Education meeting.
If you had 900 homeless students last year, I would think that some of the grant proposal stuff would be to target this population.
You're talking about in general with the
ARC and all that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we are awaiting the most recent funding for specifically for homelessness.
But the I-Team found the $349,000 homeless children and youth grant is a drop in the bucket compared to the total funds the state of Georgia has awarded the Richmond County District over the last 2 years. That includes nearly $117 million under the American Rescue Plan and another $51 million under other federal COVID funding. Millions more in other relief funds, too. Altogether, the state has approved more than $186 million for the Richmond County School District. Tens and tens of millions that the state school superintendent clearly outlines are to help at-risk populations. Like the more than 900 students the district identified as homeless last school year in Augusta. Documents obtained by the I-Team from the Georgia Department of Education shows district leaders knew they needed additional resources to serve the growing number of homeless students even before the pandemic began. And the needs assessment district report for the 2020-2021 school year, which came out just before COVID hit and shut down schools, this is listed under challenges. Under identified homeless students, inaccurate data entry, increased need for outreach, lack of funding to efficiently and effectively identify and assist homeless families. Additional staff is needed. Bus driver shortages increase the amount of time it takes to have a route assigned. Interim cab fare is very costly. Only now, 2 years later, amidst a housing and homeless crisis in our I-Team investigation, is the board allocating funds to bridge the gap from extra funding revenue streams rather than from the tens of millions already awarded from the state to help homeless kids in Richmond County.
Investigating the basic needs of homeless students in Richmond County schools going unfulfilled, our I-Team took a closer look at the person in charge of this growing segment of the student body. Needs like transportation and other special services that are mandated to be free and easy to access under federal law.
And as we first reported last month, there was even more confusion at the start of the school year because the homeless liaison was missing from her post with her email saying she was out of office. The I-Team senior investigative reporter Liz Owens got a look at her file showing missing certifications for years. And she spoke with a family dealing with real-life consequences of homeless students not getting equal access to education.
Some mornings are more overwhelming than others.
Having a bad day, aren't you?
We visit Alyssa outside on the ladder.
What's going on?
Sick of trying to find a place to call home.
I can't better this situation because I have no credit and my credit is shot.
Sick of fighting for her mental health while living in a motel.
I need to be seen by a psychiatrist every month to make sure that my medicine doesn't need to be raised or decreased.
Sick of juggling bus and taxi rides to school for her 4 children.
The cab comes at the same time as I'm trying to get my other child on the bus. And I thought I had help getting her on the bus today, and I didn't. So she missed school.
And sick of trying to get help from the people paid to help families like hers.
They call families like yours in transition.
There's nothing in transition about this. There's no help here. There's no nothing.
11-year-old Patience missed her bus this morning while her mom was still in the cab with her brother. 13-year-old Tony is nonverbal. Alyssa has to ride with him to school every morning.
You knew last year that there was a problem with the bus system. You knew last year there was a problem with homelessness and kids missing school and you losing children and all that. You knew last year. As soon as the pandemic hit, it went to hell.
She fell behind in rent and then lost the place they called home in July. Her children are 4 of more than 400 students the Richmond County School District has identified as homeless so far this year.
Because when it boils down to it, it's not about the children or the homelessness or the Board of Education. It has to do back to money and where all of it's gone to help these children.
The federal government sent money down the pipeline to school districts across the country to ensure every student had access to free public education during the pandemic. Extra money went to Title I districts like Richmond County, where many of the students are Black, live in poverty, and receive special education services. Over the last 2 years, the government has awarded the Richmond County School District $186 million additional federal dollars to bridge the gap. $32 million to specifically help homeless kids with transportation, counseling, and housing. Another $47 million to help Title I students, kids like Tony, homeless and receiving special education services. Federal law requires school districts receiving Title I funds to designate an appropriate staff person as the McKinney-Vento Homeless Liaison. The liaison is the heart of the homeless education. The liaison identifies homeless students, their needs, connects them with services, but the I-Team reported Richmond County's homeless liaison went missing at the start of the school year. We now know she was becoming a state-certified social worker on August 10th, a week after the first day of school this year. The I-Team requested her personnel file twice from the district. We only received it after sending them this email. Her file shows the district hired her in 2018 with a note attached here to her file. Certification, need to apply. At the bottom of her new hire checklist, offers of employment are contingent upon receipt and approval of requested documents. A valid professional service certificate in school social work is a requirement for this position, and her evaluation after her first year, that's the 2018-2019 school year, the certified employee box is checked yes. However, the I-Team uncovered the liaison did not receive it until nearly 3 years later, and a slew of I-Team investigations about the homeless students in Richmond County not receiving services as required under federal law.
I mean, the situation with the cab worked out with whoever is putting in the order for the cab. That obviously is not getting done, or I wouldn't be in this situation still 2 weeks later.
Or perhaps not if the Richmond County School District set more money aside to help people like her. In addition to all the extra pandemic money the federal government sent to the district, federal law mandates districts set aside a portion of Title I funds to help homeless students with things like transportation and tutoring. The average set-aside amount in Georgia is $14,000 a year. Richmond County set-aside amount, $1,000. Hancock County, a much smaller county with a high number of Title I students, sets aside 7 times that amount.
If I feel a little hopeless at times, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop going because I don't have a choice. I got an autistic child that loves me beyond life. You know what I'm saying? Where would he be?
Overwhelmed, underserved, but won't stop fighting for all her children.
Richmond County Schools sent us a statement when we pressed about these missing credentials, as noted in their own file for the homeless liaison. A spokesperson tells us in part our homeless liaison is in full compliance and exceeds all requirements set forth by the state to do the job. Any effort to discredit or slander an employee with a track record of caring for our students and families is shameful. You can read the full statement online at WRDW.com.